وضليت شهرين باليابان كمان، ما كنت أعطي لجوئي باليابان كمان، لأني كنت ناوي أذهب عند أخوي في بريطانيا، ولكن أعطيت لجوئي في اليابان. وضل سنتين ونص عم بحاول أجيب أولادي، وبالأخير جبتهم. يعني صراحة يعني صار معي كثير مشاكل لجبت أولادي للدولة اليابانية.
And as he said, he was going to Britain, so when he found out it's not gonna be the way he thought, he will not be able to go to Britain, so he knew then that he has to apply for refugee status here in Japan. And after 2 years and a half from arriving here to Japan, he called his family and his kids, but he says that since then life has been real difficult for him and he can't like live normal life in here.
يعني صراحة يعني أولادي لهلا كمان ما عندهم حنان الأب. يعني أحيانا عم ناديون يجوا لعندي ما يعرفوني. يعني ضليت ابني ما شفته، هون باليابان شفته، وبنتي هي صغيرة تركتها. يعني سنتين ونص ضليت بعيد عن أولادي.
And because he spent all this time away from his family and from his children, when they first came to Japan, they didn't recognize him actually, and it was a lot of suffering for him. They didn't know him. When he called his boy or his little girl, that didn't even see him until she came here to Japan. He wasn't there when she was born. They wouldn't come to him because they don't actually know who this person is.
لا، أنا عندي مشكلة أكبر من المشكلة اللي أنا فيها. يعني صار لي فترة وأنا بهالمشاكل، ما عندي حق باليابان. وهذيك المرة بالمقابلة المحكمة اللي قبل هاي سألني أحد الصحفيين إنه شو المشكلة الأساسية اللي عندك. يعني خبرته إنه المشكلة الأساسية أولادي أريد يدخلوا مدارس، ما عندي حق باليابان، أريد أدخل المدارس، أريد يدرسوا.
Since he came here, he faced so many problems in Japan, but the biggest problem, and also he was asked in the court last time in the court, what's the biggest issue he's facing here in Japan, and he answered that the biggest one is he has absolutely no rights in this country, in Japan, and he needs to put his children in a school and to give them good education in this country, but he cannot do any of these things.
صراحة أنا جاي من المستشفى. يعني أولادي اثنيناتهم كانوا بالمستشفى. يعني احترق من 3 أيام، احترق رجل ابني وظهر بنتي. يعني
So he's saying now he just came from the hospital, and he has 2 children and 1 boy, 1 little girl, and
نعم ابني وبنتي اثنيناتهم احترقوا.
His boy and little girl they have been burned in the leg and in the back.
هاي صورة رجل الابني.
This is my son's photo.
يعني عندي كثير مشاكل في اليابان، لا أعرف اللغة ولا أعرف وين أروح. يعني في عندي مشاكل كثيرة، وأولادي لا عندهم حق ولا عندي حق. يعني ما بعرف بدي أدرس بهالدولة أتعلم اللغة، ولا أنا بدي انطرد من هالدولة، ولا شو بدي أسوي ما عاد أعرف.
So as you can see, this is his son's photo, and this is his biggest concern in Japan, that he cannot practice any rights and he cannot do anything useful or helpful for his children. He doesn't speak the Japanese language. He wants to speak language and to be able to live here as any other citizen or foreigner, but he cannot do any of this.
So this immigration control and refugee recognition are very closely blended in. Of course, if you ask the authority, they will say, okay, it's different. They're both in the same immigration bureau, but they're done by different authorized members, officials, and they're different. But from what I believe is the very strict operation on the immigration control is also kind of influencing the refugee, the practice, the interpretation, and as you can see, that is coming out as the statistics. Also, one thing you can say is, this is more from a legal standpoint, but the reluctance of adhering to international norms. This is not only the case of refugees, but Japan has been given a lot of recommendations from various UN bodies, such as the Committee Against Torture, the Human Rights Committee, the Committee on the Rights of Child, on various different kind of various agendas. And immigration refugees is also listed up on them as well. But as you can see, there has not been a lot of change here. And as you can see, we don't have individual complaint mechanism as also other developed countries. This makes our practice here in Japan as lawyers really dominated by domestic laws, domestic norms. Meaning that this state side and also the judge, judiciary are not really familiar or really keen in using international norms and giving out the decisions or solving problems. If you point out some cases, precedents from other countries, such as US or UK or even Korea, which has really improved over the last few years, the government and the judge will say, okay, those are practices in other countries and they are not binding on our country. And the interpretation of the Refugee Convention is solely of the authority of the state. So we are the one who will interpret it in our own way.